So welcome. This is the first time that we've actually had a Zoom meeting webinar over comps. So we are excited about hosting these meetings probably once a year in order just to update information, answer any questions that our students might have leading up to and preparing for comprehensive exams. This session will be really important to those of you that will be taking comps this fall or taking comps in the spring. If you're not, that's fine. It's a great informational session for you just to have the information and kind of know how to prepare when that time comes for you to take comps. So keep that in mind. So I guess a couple things to kind of talk about to begin with. And at any point, if you guys have any questions, don't hesitate to stop me or to say something. I'd be happy to answer those midstream. So to kind of talk about comprehensive exams, they are probably one of those dreaded words that a lot of people think about, significant amounts of pressure. I met with a student this morning and we started talking about them, and she started talking about how much stress she'll be under. And really we don't expect comps to be like that, and that's why we're trying to alleviate some of that with these meetings. So the comprehensive exams specifically are different than your typical, like a final exam in a class that you might have. The comp exam for your master's program are typically in the last semester of the courses that you are completing or finishing up. More than likely, right now anyway, and we don't foresee this changing anytime soon, right now they are offered over 2 days, and each day has a 4-hour session that you will have the opportunity to partake in comps. For our virtual students, the comps are actually administered online through Blackboard Collaborate. So you will be able to, or Zoom, yeah, just depending on the technology. It really kind of depends on how many students are taking the comps in regards to what technology is going to work best for us. But either way, you guys, during the comps, when you take them, you will be video monitored for those online students. And essentially you will prepare your answers electronically and submit those through Blackboard. Okay. Kind of going back to the format of comps and what they are. I know I mentioned that they're a little bit different than a final exam, and they are, comprehensive in nature in that you guys are expected to demonstrate the knowledge in which you've acquired throughout your master's program. Do you have anything to add?
No, other than, excuse me, whereas I think you do that some in your classes now in terms of integrating information from the whole class, maybe in a final paper or a final something that you do. Maybe not even a test, but something that you're practicing with the knowledge you have. In this, you actually have to integrate information from all of the courses. And I think Jessica said that, but that's something that sometimes people don't maybe take into consideration. You're not going to have a question that's just over your development class or a question just over your behavior therapy class. The questions will be designed so that you need to think about all of your coursework. And because you will need that when you take your EDS program. You're not going to get these things again. You have to then apply those to your EDS courses.
Yeah, that's an excellent point in regards to how it's different than your final exams in courses that you might take. Are there any questions so far? You guys have? Okay. So, like I mentioned, I kind of talked about the structure. The comps are offered. Oftentimes we get questions about, well, when are comps offered? How will I know when to take comps? Well, you guys will know if working closely with your advisor, depending on how quickly you're moving through your coursework, you should have kind of an expectation. You and your advisor should be talking about that, so you kind of have an idea of when you'll be expected to take those. In regards to how often or when are they offered? So comps are typically offered 2 times a year, so in fall and in their spring semester. And most often in the fall semester, they usually happen around November, maybe the first or second week in November. And then in the spring, it's usually late March or early April that those tests are administered. So keep that in mind. Very rarely do those times fluctuate. However, just depending on how many students we have, it may change by a week or two, just depending on how many we have. Okay. Anything to add that you can think of? Okay. So another question that we often get many times, and you might be thinking now that we've talked about it, but how do you prepare? How do you study for comps? When should you start studying for comps? And, you know, to some degree, this is more of a personal kind of approach in regards to when do you start. So you know yourself best and you know your study habits. We advise you, in order to prepare for comps, we advise all of our students to please buy your books, don't rent them. Keep all of the materials that you have, all of your written work, all of your assignments, your syllabus for your courses that you have. That's very important because you can use that information to help you review and study when it comes time for preparation for that. We've had students that have gotten up, it came time for them to take comps, and they were like, well, how do we do this? And when we said, hey, you know, use your resources, use your books, and they were like, oh, we don't have them anymore. So please make sure and keep all of your materials. It's very important, not only for comps, but even future professional experiences. So it's just not for comps that we advise you to keep those.
I do have a question about that.
Yeah.
So in some of the classes we've taken, teachers might have a PowerPoint slideshow or whatever that would be attached. I didn't think at the time, oh, I should really copy these slides. And then the class was over and they went away. And now I'm thinking, oh, you really need those.
Sure.
Would instructors be bothered if I asked them for the current slides, or is it like too late?
I mean, speaking from my point of view and knowing our instructors, I don't think instructors would have a problem with that. Right. I would definitely be more than happy to hand out anything that I had in a class that maybe you didn't copy off. I think all of our faculty would be very supportive of that.
Okay.
And willing.
Yeah, I think the only time it might be a problem is if it was a faculty member who's no longer with us, and we might not have access to that.
Okay, great. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a very good question.
This is Talitha. I didn't keep any syllabi from previous semesters. Are those aren't available anywhere unless I'm in.
So you can actually contact the department secretary, Vicki Herman, and she can get you, if you tell her the courses that you need and when you took those courses, she can get you the syllabi for those courses.
Okay.
And you will also need those syllabi for your portfolio.
Yep.
So don't throw them away once you've used them for this.
Okay.
Any other questions in regards to that? Okay. All right. Okay, so I'm just looking at my list of questions here. Oftentimes, we have questions about how comps are graded. So essentially, when you take comps, they are graded on a pass or fail basis. So you're expected to pass comps in order to be considered or admitted into the EDS program. Okay, so how are comps specifically graded? Well, I mentioned earlier that you guys will complete your answers on the computer, you'll save them, and then you'll upload them to Blackboard. At that point, Vicki Herman, which is our department secretary, she actually identifies the different question or answers, with a random number. And then the school site committee, which is contained myself, Jennifer, and Dr. Hill, will sit down and blind grade those comprehensive exams. We have specific rubrics that we use that were those state. That was what our department.
It was for our accreditation
purposes.
We
So
have rubrics to grade. Yeah.
Right. So we have rubrics that we use in order to grade those assessments or the comprehensive exams. And then once those are done, then we will, obviously Vicki will give us the coded information, so the number, the random number, and your name, and then we will be able to provide feedback to you as to whether you passed or failed based on those grading techniques.
And just a couple of things too. We blind grade them, but also we do it independently. So
yes.
I take a set, Jessica takes a set, Dr. Hill
Yes.
takes a set, the same set. And we all three independently read through them, mark things on the rubrics, and then we get together as a group
Yes.
and we look at our, markings and our comments and such and put that all together so that we have agreement of the three of us. And then at that point, that's when we go to Vicki and say, okay, now we need to know which numbers are associated, what the people's names are so that we know whose they are.
Yeah, thank you for
Yeah.
that.
And then one other thing is that there also is so there's really two sections to comps, and maybe you'll talk about that in a little bit.
Yeah,
But,
go ahead.
well, I'm not going to really talk about the sections, but I'm just going to say in terms of grading them, we do them by sections, so you could pass one but not the other. And there can be sometimes a pass with remediation. And that's only done if there's not inaccuracies or deficiencies in the answers. If basically the answer is all correct, but maybe there's one thing that needs to be given a little more attention to or a little more information provided, then we might say pass, but you need to remediate, in which case you would get it back and put more information into it and then submit it, but you would be considered a pass for it. Right?
Yeah. I was just waiting to see if there were any questions on that.
I have some questions.
Yeah.
That's
As far as the rubric, do we have access to that?
we don't
What the rubric is.
give you the rubric until we score it,
Right.
and then you get the rubric with the scoring. And the scoring
Okay.
is from all of us, three of us together, pooling our, so you get one
Right.
scores that's based upon our agreements. Yeah.
Okay, but we don't have like a specific rubric that like we know what you guys are looking for, I guess.
No, but we can talk a little bit about what we would be looking for.
Yeah. So
Okay.
in regards, Jennifer mentioned that there's kind of two sections to comprehensive exams. One of those is more of the school psychology methods versus the other, which is the research component. So when you take those, they will be divided up. One day will be maybe more of the methods approach or the questions, and then the next day would be the research information. With that, when we're looking for what we're looking for, it really is a comprehensive understanding of the question that we pose to you guys. Now, the question oftentimes there might be, it just depends on the question. Oftentimes there are vignettes, so scenarios that you need to analyze and pull information from all of those courses in order to answer that, successfully answer it. What else am I forgetting?
Yeah, I think mainly it is that you will be practically applying what you know.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be like if you were in the real world, how would you use that information on real people? Okay, so if you're working with a teacher, what would you do? If you're working with the child, what would you do? And using all the knowledge that you have from development, behavior stuff, assessment, the advanced learning and motivation,
Sure.
Ethics.
Yeah. Just
all of those courses, you'd be thinking, okay, from everything I learned in all those courses, what would I need? How would I need to? It's a series of questions usually.
Right.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
So I will be taking the comps before I have completed ethics.
You'll be taking it before? No.
No, I'll be taking. So I take ethics the semester I take comps.
You would have to have all of your courses in process when you take comps. You would not want to take comps until you've taken all of your courses, or you're at the end of taking all those courses.
Right. So what I'm saying is, I'll take comps in late March, but I will have not completed my ethics course.
Right.
But it sounds like ethics will be a big part of the comps.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess we're just counting on the fact that most of our classes have covered ethics, and we'll have enough of a background to be able to answer those questions, even if we haven't yet completed the ethics course.
Right. You'll
Does
have
that make sense?
4 weeks left in the course, something like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the comprehensive exams, keep in mind that it's not regurgitation of factual information. So just because maybe you haven't covered a particular standard doesn't mean that you would not have the knowledge to be able to answer that question successfully. It's because courses integrate ethics. All of our courses integrate ethics to some degree. And with that information that you've collected in your ethics course up until that point, you should have enough information to be successful on that.
Jessica, I have a quick question. So I know we can use all of our resources to prepare for comps and studying and look at our textbooks and syllabus.
Mm-hmm.
Once the question is asked, are we allowed to access those resources once we know what the question is to answer it, in a timely manner, or is it, for lack of a better word, closed book? Yeah,
it is closed book exam, and that's essentially why we would be video monitoring you.
Right.
When you're taking the exam, yes. So yeah, you're not supposed to be accessing those materials while you are taking them.
Okay.
So we would
go ahead. Is that Mary?
Talitha.
Oh, Talitha. Sorry.
cite references then. I mean, because if we don't have the exact reference.
There's the answers will not be regurgitation of facts. It will be applying knowledge you have to how you're going to deal with a particular situation and what you would use, and so while you may need to know, what's an intelligence test and talk about it in a way that helps us know you understand cognitive assessment, you're not going to talk about what scores might mean or any, where you'd need to access any tables or things of that nature.
Yeah, it's like Jennifer mentioned earlier, it's very application based. So if you think about vignettes, if you've had any type of vignettes in the courses that you've taken thus far, being able to analyze that in a very broad spectrum of all of that information that you've learned. So with developmental, when you approach the test, when you read the questions, okay, how does development, the information that I've learned about development, how does that, I lost my words. How does it apply, or is it a factor in this question? And then be able to address it. And then think about appraisal. Okay, what I've learned with assessments, IQ and achievement, does that apply? Do I need to address anything in this situation based on that knowledge that I've learned in my courses? And kind of go through each course that way in order to address the question. Okay. It's very application-based. Yes, go ahead.
This is Mary again. So I just have a couple questions. So basically, it's an essay that we're doing. It's like we're not answering questions. We're using application, and then we're writing an essay on how we would handle the situation, focusing on different elements of the test
Mhm.
or different elements of the question.
Yeah,
Okay, so is that right?
yeah, so there's certainly questions. Most of the questions will expect you to answer in essay format, yes. And there's also sometimes there are questions on here regarding different behavioral components. So how do you address those types of things? But yes, on the most part, it is essay. Did you have another question?
Okay. Yeah, and then I guess how many times can you take the exam if you don't pass? If it says that you have a fail or whatever, if we don't pass, I know there's that certain time frame.
Yeah.
Can we have to take it immediately, or how does that work?
Yeah, good question. So another great question that we get all of the time. So depending on your performance, Jennifer mentioned earlier, there's a couple different parts. If you by chance pass maybe the methods section of school psychology and then the research section you didn't, then you would be required obviously to retake that. And you're required to retake the comps the next time that comps are offered. I shouldn't say required. You can retake comps the next time it is offered. So for example, if you take comps, say you're taking comps this fall in November, and for some reason you didn't pass, then you would be eligible to take comps in the spring of 2017. Okay, because that is the next time they're offered. If you happen to take comps in the spring for the first time and you didn't pass, then you would have to wait till the fall, the following fall, in order to take those. Okay, so to answer your question about how many times you can take comps 2 times. On the third time, you actually have to petition the department in order to take comps a third time. With that petition, there are certain things that you have to submit, like a detailed plan of study, how you're going to prepare, how you are going to, essentially you're showing how you're going to pass comps this third time, and should the department allow you to do that. Correct?
Yep.
Yep.
And this doesn't happen very often. So
Correct.
Just, to allay your fears. And comps have been in existence for probably 45 years now here, and pretty much in a similar fashion.
Yeah, very much
Jessica
so.
took them, I took them here. And so it's not different than it was, except the only difference is when I took them, we didn't have computers. So we had to write out all of our responses. And we didn't have, internet. So we all had to be on campus taking them. But that's really the only difference. Otherwise, this has been, the way comps have been administered for a long time. But again, it's not where you're asked a specific exact right answer or wrong answer. There's differences that you can put into it depending upon what you get from our courses.
Mm-hmm.
But if there could be very inaccuracies that you put in, or things that are totally not okay ethically, for example, where that would be a fail. Because we, basically what's happening after you do this is hopefully you're at the end of your master's, you get your master's degree and you apply to the EDS, and you're going to be doing things like practicum. And you will not learn anything from your master's program except ethics will continue to come up and, things of that nature. But what you learn in your master's is what you're going to need for your work in your EDS. So if you don't have a good mastery of that, you wouldn't do well at the EDS level.
Did that answer your question, Mary?
Yeah, it does. I have 2 more, if that's okay.
Oh, yeah.
Really quick.
Sure.
It's just along the same line. So, again, I'm not trying to be worst case scenario. I'm just trying to have all the information. But let's say that, I don't pass the exams or whatever, and I take them a couple of times. Do you not get your master's degree?
No, correct.
Okay. And then the other question was, is there a cost for the exam or for the comp exams that we need to pay?
That's a really good question. I don't know.
I don't
that.
even know the answer to that, actually. But you do it through graduate school. We
Yeah.
don't take care of that part at our department level.
Right.
Every department.
Oh, okay.
So every degree you get, you have to take a comprehensive exam.
Mhm.
Every discipline requires, the graduate school of the university requires that for every program. So you'll have another one at the EDS, but that one is called the Praxis, and that's the school psychology praxis exam that everybody across the nation takes. It's like an ETS test, right? So at the master's level, this is what you have to take. And so you actually, when you sign up for that you intend to graduate, I think this is true. I'll ask Leanna if this happened to you. You were then prompted, do you want to sign up for comps, correct? Yeah, Leanna says yes. So then
Yes.
it will take you through. Did you have to pay a fee?
Yes.
Okay,
Not for comps, just for the intent to graduate.
that's what I thought.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't believe there is a cost specifically associated with comps. However, when you sign, like Jennifer said, when you do your intent to graduate, then there's a fee associated with that, but not specifically with comps.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Is that all, Mary?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
I have a question.
Yeah.
And I know we briefly covered this when I was out for the class, and students said, how do the online students compare with the on-campus students as far as being prepared to pass the comps? And I know your response was that we did just as well, that we were fine. And I'm like, Mary, I'm preparing for the worst case scenario. Do you guys have like a percentage of students that pass, or like, are your students pretty successful in general? Do most people get through on the first try?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. Very, very rarely
Right.
do we have students that don't pass.
We have some that have to maybe do a remediation.
Yes.
Okay.
That's still a pass.
Right.
I have some test anxiety, so all of this is like very reassuring. I'm like, okay.
Right.
So if we say worst case scenario, we don't pass, can we take EDS classes just knowing that until we pass the comps, those credits?
We would not.
Okay.
We would not permit that. No.
Because you wouldn't be progressing towards your degree. Now, some of you might be even taking something now, or in the spring you might, because you only have one master's class left, so you might be taking those. So you would continue to, finish that semester, and you would have a grade for that. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
If I'm planning to graduate in the spring, should I have filled out an intent to graduate form by now?
No, you'll do that in the spring.
I just wasn't sure whether.
Yeah.
And it's usually early in January. So if you look online at the academic calendar for spring 2017, just the general calendar for all the university, it's already up there and it will tell you the date. It's the same for every graduate program campus. So that's the date. Actually, the date is after the date that you have to sign up. I mean, you have to do intent to graduate
Before you sign up
before
for
you
comps.
have to sign up for comps, but
Yep.
you do them both at the same time.
I actually have the dates right here. If you guys, I already printed this out and like organized this all. This is Mary again. Sorry. So if you're graduating in the spring, because I am too, the intent to graduate sign up is you have to do that before January 30th, and then you have to sign up for the comprehensive exams by February 27th. So those are the two dates that are from that calendar.
So essentially, with that, you can, when you complete your intent to graduate, like we mentioned earlier, you will also identify yourself as someone that's taking comps. So keep that in mind. Thank you, Mary, for providing those dates.
I'm over organized, so no problem.
There's nothing wrong with that. Okay, so let's see here. I have another frequently asked question. Can I review previous comp questions and answers? And typically, that is not a practice that that we allow our students to do, to
Especially
review.
answers.
Yeah,
No one
especially.
ever reads answers.
Right. Yeah. You aren't able to read previous answers to determine, to read quality answers versus answers that maybe were a fail. We just don't provide that to our students for a multitude of reasons. Allowing students to read previous comps. I know when I went through the program, that was a practice that they did do, but since that time, it has faded away. So students aren't allowed to review those questions either. Okay. Anything to add on that?
No, I don't think so. And we can perhaps talk about, I think you did though, you sort of have scenarios and you answer questions about them. And,
Sure.
and the research question, I guess I do want to address that a little. I think that it's not where you're going to have to do a statistical analysis or develop a research project in your answer. But what you need to do is what you've been practicing when you took your research course, the experimental methods. If you might remember, can anybody think of what they did when they took that class, if you've already taken it? How you looked at like a research article,
Yeah.
you had to do something with it.
Decide if there were any ethical concerns or design flaws.
Right.
Mhm.
Right.
And if they did the statistical analysis and,
Yeah. It's very.
if they, used their research design, that's correct. If they used the right statistical analysis in describing what the results were, et cetera. Okay.
Yeah, the research section, like Jennifer said, you don't have to design anything or do any statistical analysis. However, it's very practical. It's a very practical approach. So what are the skills that you have learned in your experimental methods course, in your stats course, that will afford you the skills, what skills you'll use as a professional. So just think about that, because that's where these questions really stem from. It's a very practical approach to get a very well-rounded picture of your knowledge and your ability to integrate that knowledge to answer those questions and apply it to different scenarios and situations.
How many questions are there for each section?
Yeah, it does. It varies year to year. Let's see, typically, I don't know. I can't even think of.
Well, there's usually a couple of, scenario vignettes that are major, and then a couple more minor, and then
the research.
the research. And each of them has between 3 to 5 questions, 6,
Yeah.
and one's maybe a little lengthier.
Yeah, it really kind of depends on the vignette and the focus of it. So.
And sometimes also, we've had people maybe say, well, we didn't actually do this in a class. Well, you might not have done this in a class because when you had the class, maybe you didn't have some other courses yet that you would have been able to do all of it. Or maybe you didn't do it in that specific way, but you still, if you just use the information that you got from your course, you can easily answer it.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Do most people, so you said there are 2 4-hour sessions, one day, one another day.
Correct.
Do most people seem to fit well within the 4 hours, or do you have to push yourself pretty hard to finish within 4 hours?
I was going to say, typically people have enough time, plenty of time, to be able to complete that in 4 hours. I don't think we've at least since I've been here, I don't think we've had anybody that's been right at that 4-hour mark and wasn't able to get their stuff completed.
Yeah.
They're usually finishing, I don't know, an hour,
Earlier.
maybe a half an hour prior to that 4-hour mark or so. There's definitely plenty of time for that. Okay, good question. Any other questions? So when it's your turn or when it's your time to take comps, typically an email is sent out early in the semester about comps information. So the dates, the times, and what to expect, how to log on, depending on what technology is being used, whether it's Collaborate or Zoom. That email will be sent out to all of you that will be taking them. So make sure and watch for that if you will be taking them anytime soon. So, okay.
Is it typically
Starting that,
days that they're offered? Oh, sorry.
No, that's okay. We just had Mary and Ben talking. Ben, go ahead.
Is it typically weekdays that they are administered?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
And Mary?
I was just going to ask, similar to that, do we get to choose, or are we told when we need to take it?
Yeah, so the dates will be picked for you. So we will schedule comps, and then we will inform all of you as to what those dates are.
It's typically afternoons.
Yes. Yeah, it is typically an afternoon sessions.
So by when would we need to be completely prepared, or what is the range of when the dates are? I know they have to be completed by April 24th. When would they possibly start?
So it really kind of depends on how many students, since we have to go through and grade each exam. So let's see, they have to be done by the 24th. I believe we are looking at,
Week after spring.
yeah, it is. Yeah, we're looking at the week after spring break for the spring session of comps. And that information will be sent out early in the spring semester. Yeah, I can't remember. I know it's after spring break. It's either the first week or the last week in March. But we wanted to do it, actually it's going to be just a little early this year because we have so many students that will be taking comps in the spring.
Okay.
Okay.
I have a question. I'm going to take them campus. Do I need to bring my computer? Because will I do everything on the computer?
Yeah.
How's that?
Yeah, good question. So actually, when you come to campus, we have a little computer lab that has doors on it. So we'll be able to shut the doors, reserve the room, and then you'll just be monitored while you're taking those comps. Yep, so you do not need to bring your computer. We will have computers you can use. Yep. That is an option. I know most of you are maybe out of the state, but if you are in state and you would prefer to come to campus, you are more than welcome to come on to campus and take the comps on those particular days. Yes. Any other questions you guys might have? Or concerns or reservations?
Just know everybody does it.
Yep. Yes.
Oh, I had one more question.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't apply to the EDS program until after you know that you have passed the comps.
Yeah, good question. So
What's the timing with that?
yeah, actually, I would go ahead and advise you to apply to the EDS program, simply because the comps are typically offered after the cutoff date for EDS submission in the spring semester when you submit those applications. So I would definitely apply to the EDS, even though you don't know the results or haven't even taken them yet.
Can you briefly describe the procedure to apply for the EDS? Sorry.
Sure.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, would you?
Okay, sure. And it is up online also. So you can easily go to the psychology website for school psychology and then just click into the EDS and you'll be able to see the forms and stuff. It's pretty similar to what we have for the masters, but there's some differences. The thing that I can't tell you right now is the university just changed their whole system. for
Yes.
doing online submissions, and we haven't been trained on that yet. So we don't even know what it is exactly, but I can tell you what you have to put into it. So basically, you will do a personal statement, similar to personal statement. You did a personal statement in your master's, and then you will have two people who will be folks that can talk about your skill sets. So we need two kind of different responders that will be recommending you for this program. One who has worked with you in some way and knows your skill set. Another that knows, your skills as a student. So that could be a professor you've had. Can't be Jessica or I, because we make decisions. We're the committee. So it needs to be someone other than us that would do that, because that would not be, a fair kind of assessment. That would be an ethical dilemma. But what you would then want to do also, there's a form up there that's kind of a rating that your two people would fill out and then submit. It's just a Word document table that asks about certain skills you have. They're more of what we would call interpersonal essential skills, interacting with others, promptness, accepting feedback well, things of that nature, where they rate those kind of things. And then you have to answer a couple of questions that we have up there, just like you did in the master's. They're different questions, though. So you answer those. And then if you've taken any other coursework other than what you have at Fort Hays, you would need to submit that. But otherwise, we have your transcript. You need to have, it will say that you need to have scores for the GREs. And so hopefully your scores are current enough within 5 years. And then I think that's it.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yep. But how you submit them now, I'm not actually sure. Hopefully there's information up on the website that would tell you that. You just need to have it in by March 15th as the deadline. And then, of course, we wouldn't make decisions until after we know that you've completed we could do a conditional based on that you complete your coursework with 3.25 or better, no C's.
And successfully complete your comps.
And successfully complete your comps. But we don't even make that decision until you complete your comps and have passed them. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I just had a question. I read somewhere, and obviously I'm concerned about this because I'm taking the stats course in the spring, that we were allowed to have a C in that class.
Yeah, that's I was starting to say that. Yes, you're allowed to have a C course. We don't really want you to, but.
I mean, I don't have any even B's, but I'm just saying, that's why I'm concerned about it. So I just wanted to clarify. Thank you.
That's correct.
Yeah, so Jennifer and myself and Dr. Hill have been working extensively on the new school psychology handbook, which should be coming out hopefully no later than the end of October, potentially as early as next week. The faculty, we have to discuss it and vote on it. So that's the next step. Once that's done, then that will be shared with all of you. It'll be put online on our website for you to access. And the handbook will be very detailed and talk about many of the things that we've talked about in our webinar today. Specific information about comps, required grade point averages, application processes, licensure, practicum, internship. It'll be very detailed handbook and a great reference to all of you. So once that is done, we will likely be contacting you through email, attaching it to the email so you have it firsthand, but then always knowing that you can access it on the website as well. Okay? It will be an invaluable resource to you guys, truly. All right. Anything else you can think of? Do you guys have any questions at all? Think of? If you guys do, obviously don't hesitate to contact Jennifer or myself. We'd be happy to help out, answer anything that you might have. If you're taking comps this year, good luck. And we look forward to seeing you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks.
We appreciate your time.
Bye.